Think about every financial commercial you have ever seen. There is usually a silver-haired couple standing on the deck of a sailboat smiling warmly. But right below that peaceful imagery, there is almost always a link to a retirement readiness calculator. You plug in your perfectly reasonable savings, and an animated progress bar instantly turns bright red, warning that your money will evaporate by age 72. You are hopelessly behind. You will never have enough. But this panic is based on a massive mathematical flaw. We are drowning in financial anxiety, obsessing over whatever arbitrary $3 million target an online dashboard spit out this week. If you look at the actual Bureau of Labor Statistics data, a completely different story emerges. Right now, the average American working household spends roughly $80,000 a year. That covers the chaotic peak of your life. The massive mortgage, the daily commute, the kids, and the desperate takeout dinners because you were too tired to cook. But when you cross the threshold into your mid-60s, a fascinating psychological and financial step down happens. Retired households aged 65 and older spend an average of roughly $61,000 a year. That is an immediate 20% drop in your cost of living. This highlights a crucial concept: replacement income. That sounds complicated, but simply put, it means you do not need to replace your entire working salary to maintain your exact same standard of living. You only need to replace your required income. If you apply the famous 4% rule to that $61,000 spending average, standard calculators will tell you that you need roughly $1.5 million sitting in the stock market to generate that cash safely forever. For a normal person looking at a 401k right now, $1.5 million feels impossible. It feels like trying to fill an Olympic swimming pool with a garden hose. But that terrifying target assumes you are generating every single penny of your retirement from your own savings. It assumes you are starting from zero. You are not starting from zero. You need to stop viewing Social Security as just pocket change and start treating it as a massive, tangible bond asset. By the year 2026, the average monthly Social Security benefit is nearly $25,000 a year. For a two-person household receiving that average benefit, that combined payout is roughly $50,000 a year in guaranteed income. Stop and think about the math here. We just established the average retired household spends $61,000 a year. If $50,000 is covered by Social Security, the baseline gap you actually need to fill is only $11,000. You do not need to build the entire bridge. You just need to build the last few feet. So applying that 4% rule to just that $11,000 gap, you only need about $275,000 in your 401k or IRA. When you see the math laid out like that, it is an absolute light bulb moment. Oh, that's what it means. It means the goalpost is not miles away. It is right in front of you. This is exactly why the median retirement savings for Americans aged 65 to 74 is $200,000. When you hear that the average retiree has over $1 million, the math is being heavily skewed by the ultra-wealthy. If 10 regular guys are in a bar and Elon Musk walks in, the average person is suddenly a billionaire. But the median person is exactly the same. The guy next door is successfully retiring with $200,000 because his Social Security is doing the heavy lifting as a concrete asset. But there is a second massive force multiplier that generic online retirement calculators completely ignore: your housing. These calculators assume you will pay market rate rent forever, but the data tells a completely different story. An incredible 64% of homeowners age 65 and older own their homes outright. Zero mortgage, no bank payment hanging over their heads every month. Yes, you still pay property taxes and insurance, but your paid-off home acts as a massive inflation shield. This brings us to the most fascinating piece of data. We know the average retired household spends $61,000 a year. But what if your house and car are paid off? What if you are no longer commuting, no longer paying payroll taxes, and no longer dumping 15% of your paycheck into a 401k? Does it actually cost $61,000 just to keep the lights on? No. That figure is an average, which includes retirees living lavish lifestyles and traveling the world. When we dig into actual surveys, we find a shocking statistic. 48% of retirees report spending under $2,000 a month. Let that sink in. Nearly half of all retirees are living on less than $24,000 a year. How is that mathematically possible? It comes down to the difference between necessary spending and lifestyle spending. When you strip away the mortgage, the payroll taxes, the 401k contributions, and the costs of maintaining a busy working family lifestyle, your baseline survival number is incredibly small. It essentially comes down to groceries, Medicare premiums, utilities, and gas. Everything else is a choice. You are no longer saving for the future because you are in the future. You are no longer building the nest egg, you are sitting in the nest. So how do you actually bridge the gap between where you are now and a stress-free retirement? We have to stop operating on anxiety and start operating strictly on math. Step 1 is the fixed cost audit. You need to separate your survival number from your lifestyle number. Look at your monthly bank statement. Cross out everything you will not be paying for when you are 65. Cross out the mortgage, the commute gas, the expensive work lunches, and the money going into your investment accounts. What is left? That is your survival number. For most people, this number is shockingly low. If your Social Security covers your survival number, congratulations. Everything you have in your 401k is purely for fun. It is your lifestyle number, used for vacations, spoiling your grandchildren, or upgrading your life. Step 2 is the mortgage race. In the final years before you retire, financial purists will tell you the stock market returns 8 to 10% on average, so you should always invest. But approaching the finish line, certainty becomes much more valuable than potential growth. Paying off a 7% mortgage is a guaranteed, risk-free, tax-free return. More importantly, eliminating that monthly payment drastically drops your survival number. It mathematically forces you to need less income. If paying off your house means you can survive entirely on Social Security without ever touching your savings during a market crash, that peace of mind is worth infinitely more than squeezing an extra 2% out of Wall Street. Step 3 is income layering. Retirement is not a light switch. Many retirees find that stopping work entirely leads to a massive loss of purpose. Instead of needing a multi-million-dollar portfolio, you can find incredible success layering small streams of income on top of your Social Security floor. If Social Security pays $50,000 a year and your paid-off house keeps expenses low, maybe you only need an extra $500 a month for a luxurious lifestyle. You do not need to risk your life savings to generate $500. You can generate that working a fun part-time job 2 days a week. You are no longer grinding to survive. You are simply layering low-stress income on top of a concrete foundation. We need to completely reframe how we view retirement in this country. It is a fundamental shift from accumulation to utility. It is no longer about how much you have, it is entirely about how little you actually need. When you understand that your home acts as an inflation shield, when you recognize that Social Security provides a massive, guaranteed income floor, and when you realize your actual day-to-day living expenses plummet the moment you stop commuting and saving, the math finally starts to make sense. You do not need $2 million to finally exhale. You do not need to sacrifice your health, your sanity, and the best years of your life chasing a massive number on a screen. What you really need is to regain control of your time. This matters because every single year you spend grinding for a massive unnecessary surplus is a year you are stealing from your own freedom. The practical reality is that you are probably much closer to the finish line than the generic calculators want you to believe. So here is your immediate next step. Do not look at your investment balance today. Look at your spending. Sit down, pull up last month's credit card statement, and brutally highlight only what you actually need to survive. Calculate that one single number. Once you see how small your true baseline really is, that wall of anxiety will start to crack. The data proves it. The median American is doing it right now.
Figure out your actual survival baseline and give yourself permission to step off the treadmill.